to this session of the 2021 Conservation Careers Fair. I've been having a great time. The rest of the team has been having a great time as well. We hope that you at home, at work, at the gym, wherever you are enjoying yourself as much as we are and have learned so much about the various jobs available in conservation. Earlier we had a panel discussion with HR specialists, and we hope that you really learned more about not just the opportunities that are available, but how to get those jobs, how you can market yourself in a way that makes any employer want to employ you today, right now. And I know earlier I had said that was my favorite section, but now I'm having to rethink that because we're talking to one of my favorite people in the conservation sphere, and particularly in the tourism sphere, because what he does, I feel, is so different from what a lot of other people are doing. His name is Mwaba Mwila, and he runs a company called Mwaba Mwila Adventures. I know, right? Very unique branding. Hi, Mwaba, how are you?
Hi, Louis. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. So, as I mentioned, Mwaba Mwila is a man, but he's also a business, and today he's going to tell us about his journey to get to where he got to today. As I mentioned, he works in the tourism industry, but as I'm sure you've seen over the last 2 days, there is a lot of intersection between tourism and conservation, and in fact, without one, usually the other suffers. So Mwaba, maybe tell us a bit about yourself first. When you were growing up, was this the plan? Did 5-year-old Mwaba see himself being here today?
To be honest, Louis, it wasn't the plan. I mean, growing up, I had many dreams, many ambitions. You know, I wanted to go down the path of, will I be a doctor? Will I be a teacher? But I think as I grew older, or as I entered my teens, I realized I was more of an adventurous spirit, so to say, and I think that made me realize that whatever it is that I decide or I choose to do needs to be something a bit more adventurous and less structured. And I would have never thought at 5 that I would, be a business owner or even be in the tourism sector. But there you go. I mean, it came about with more self-awareness and having an adventurous spirit. I think I needed to do something a bit less structured.
Awesome, I like that. First of all, I just want to point out the chokehold that being a doctor has on African kids. I don't know what the medical profession did, but all of us at some point dreamed of being a doctor. But I love that you mentioned, like, once you were older, you were more self-aware and you understood what you like to do and what your career needs to be focused on, because I think a lot of young people don't really match their passion and their ability with a career. They just think, well, this is where the money is and that's where I should go. But now here you are today. Could you tell us a bit about the journey to get to creating your own business? Was this your first job? Have you done other things before this? And if so, how did those things lead you to where you are today?
I mean, I always like to look back at my earliest experience of being outdoors and being in the bush, being out in nature, because it's what had a huge impact on me, growing up. And I always pinpoint a point when it was actually in grade 5. We went on a school camp, we went on a school trip, and we climbed this mountain, this little hill, and I felt such a big sense of achievement, even being so young. And I remember having a strong admiration for the guides who were with us as they were talking about, the different types of trees, and they were pointing out the different birds. And that for me was something that I carried for a very, very long time. And even as I, decided to explore different things and other things, I still had this massive impact, or this desire to wanting to go back out into nature. And as I grew up, I took every opportunity that I could get, to go out and explore and be out there in the bush. But I think the first kind of documentation or putting this idea of having a tour operator for me was in 2009. So I dreamt about it for a very long time, but the first time I actually wrote it down, wrote down the vision for my business was in 2009. Many years ago. I've gone through so many names, so many business plans and ways of doing things. But that's when I had this idea of exploring Zambia and sharing that. And in the earlier stages, I actually started on social media. So what I'll do is I'll go somewhere fun, I'll go somewhere cool, I'll take pictures, take videos, and I'll post it on my social media. And that was the idea behind it. I wasn't full-on tour operator yet, but as I went down the line, people started asking me, where did you go? How do you get there? Next time, take us with you. And so I started doing that. That was the next step, Of course, I have a background in adventure education, so I worked a lot with young people in school camps, and this again kind of refueled my energy, my love for the outdoors. And in the times that I had in between, the breaks that I had, I'll go out and I'll take friends, They'll be like, where do you go this week? Where are you going next week? And I'll say, let's go. And it was, in the last 2 years, I decided to kind of take the plunge and say, let me go into this full-time. Let me begin a career as a tour operator in the adventure tourism space in Zambia.
Awesome. I love so many things that you've said, but the first thing I want to highlight is the time that it took from when you first had the idea to its fruition 2 years ago. I think for many people, they're frustrated that it takes a long time for them to get a job or a long time for them to have an idea and for that idea to turn into something. But that's well over 10 years of you dreaming of something before you can achieve it. And in that 10 years, you were doing things to get closer and closer to your dream. So I just want to highlight that for anybody who's sitting at home and maybe is a bit frustrated about this idea that they have or this need that they see, but don't know how to make it happen. And I also like that you were doing something. You weren't just sitting and being like, oh, it'd be really great to be a tour operator. Oh, well, you were taking friends. And I'm sure in that time you were learning what works and what doesn't. But in that vein, what works and what doesn't, what have you found to be the biggest challenge to you as an individual in this whole time and in this process of creating your business?
I think, Louis, my biggest challenge, I would say, is starting. Like with many things in life, the starting point is the most difficult part. My passion is in adventure. My passion is in exploration. That's where my strengths are. So when I decided to start a business, I had to begin to research how a business works, how a business is registered. Each industry has its own specific requirements, and that did not come naturally to me. So it was a massive challenge for me. Like you have highlighted, the timing of it as well. A lot of times, because you're passionate about something, you want to go at it. You have an idea today and you want to go at it tomorrow. For me, that was 10 years of waiting, and then when I finally launched the business, I launched it 3 months before the pandemic hit and came to Zambia. So even after I had fully registered my company and I was about to start, I had to wait a whole year of doing nothing and not taking clients and a bit more waiting. So I think for me, the most challenging was formalizing the business and also thinking about the business technical side of it, because it didn't come naturally to me. I was much happier out there in the bush on top of a mountain and not really looking at receipts and, the technical and administrative tasks of it.
I like that you understand your strengths and your weaknesses, but you don't let them stop you, because I think like you, I don't like the nuts and bolts and the intricate details, the boring accounts and all of this administration and all these government requirements that
Exactly.
are put in place that are necessary, but they just feel to kind of like raining on your parade, like you just want to get out there and go. But in spite of all of that, you've clearly made it. In spite of a pandemic that ravaged Zambia's tourism industry, you've made it, you're here, you're doing your business. What keeps you going? What is the thing that wakes you up every morning and makes it all worth it?
I think for me, it's a shared experience, right? So I'm a person who loves nature. I love Zambia, and I love having a great time out there. And for me, one of the most rewarding things is seeing somebody else having a shared passion as with me. And I remember talking about this with a few friends of mine a few weeks ago, when they talked about how challenging some of our packages can be. And I laughed and I jokingly said that I don't create packages that are fun, I create packages that are challenging. So it's personal challenge and personal growth is very, very important to me. So when I take out some clients on a hike, on a mountain climb, when I see somebody overcoming a personal challenge, that for me is very, very rewarding, and that's what keeps me going. I love to see people becoming better versions of themselves. I love to see people growing. I love to see people learning, and that is what keeps me going.
Yeah, I mean, usually people in the tourism sector would talk about, oh, it's going to be so luxurious, it's going to be a holiday, or it'll be like a short stroll. But here you are saying, yeah, no, I want to challenge you. I want it to be hard. I want it to hurt. But I want you to get to the other side of that. And that's really, really exciting. And I'm sure you've seen that there are very few people offering that in this space. And it's beautiful to see. But even aside from that, I think what I've noticed about a lot of your trips and hikes that are available is that you're targeting Zambians and you want them to get out there. Is that deliberate, or is it just because it's COVID and there's no one else here available?
It's very deliberate. It's very, very deliberate. I have seen growing up, the number of Zambians that actually take part or are consumers in domestic tourism, and the numbers are very, very low. For me, it was a very deliberate move right from the beginning, and it's one thing that I've told myself that I wouldn't compromise on. It's part of our business model, it's part of our business plan that we want to encourage more Zambians to go out and experience, Zambia. I was talking a bit more about challenging people. Our tagline is challenging you, impacting communities, one adventure at a time. So it's twofold. There's on one side the personal challenge, on the other side there is impacting communities. So here we are giving Zambians the opportunity to give back to these communities through participating in these hikes. They bring lots of opportunities, employment opportunities for the local communities that we visit. I like to keep my team very lean, very small when we travel, and we do employ in the different locations that we visit, people from those communities. So that's an opportunity there as well.
And I know it's early days, like you mentioned, it's been a little over 2 years, and half of that has been the pandemic. But are you seeing this dream coming to fruition? Are you seeing Zambians taking interest and challenging themselves? And then secondly, are you seeing these Zambians then impacting the communities that they go and visit?
I'll say yes. Actually, I think I kind of underestimated myself, and I underestimated the market. But from the time we started, by the time we launched in February, at the beginning of this year, we had so much interest, from people wanting to book, wanting to come on our hikes and experience our packages, to the point where I almost got to a point where I was overwhelmed, because I didn't expect to see such an amazing turnout on some of our hikes. And most of it, 90% of it, I would say is word of mouth, somebody going back from an experience, sharing it with a family or a friend, and some people even coming back. And yeah, I think we have seen that in the minds of those who come and visit, they become aware of the real issues on the ground. And this is one of the things that we want to show. We want to show beautiful mountains and rivers, but we want to show the real needs that are in these communities. And I can give an example of one of the communities that we visited. And I remember the particular headman was talking to us about one of the challenges that he had of a bridge that was washed away. And he made an appeal, and, not me, but the hikers on that particular camp came together and donated money for, some cement to build this bridge. So already, even without going back, it triggered something in them to do something for that community. And we'll be happy to see where that pans out. But I think we do have very strong relationships with the communities that we work in. But even greater, we want our clients to go back and have stronger relationships with those communities as well, and trigger something in them to want to do something more for Zambia.
Yeah, that's very inspiring, because I think historically there's been perception that Zambians aren't interested in nature and not interested in being outdoors. I remember when I would go hiking, people would say, oh, that's such a white thing to do. I'm sure you've experienced that as well. But clearly there's a whole generation of Zambians who are interested in getting out into nature, interested in learning more, and also are interested in impacting their communities. And that's great to hear, but it's also brings a question for me and for someone in the audience. Okay, this is where you're at now. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you continue with this, or are there even bigger and grander plans for Mwaba Mwila Adventures?
I always like to say, Louis, a person who doesn't want to make a massive impact in one area, but I'd want to be remembered as someone who makes lots of little impacts in lots of different areas in Zambia. And that's our kind of model of operation, and that's what my focus is on. So this year we launched our hikes in and around Lusaka. Going forward, you're going to be seeing more hikes, more venues around the country. And this is what we hope to do, this is what we hope to achieve, is to replicate what we're doing in some of the communities around Lusaka and go further afield.
Awesome, awesome. And just while we're on that, in case you don't know at home, Mwaba's hikes happen really often, usually on a weekend, and they're really affordable. Often he has a hike available, or a hike and a camp. And you just mentioned earlier that you have one coming next weekend. So if you're sitting at home and don't know what to do with your weekend, please join Mwaba Mwila's next adventure. I think we only have time for one more question, unfortunately, but someone asked a good question based on what you had mentioned earlier about the challenges of starting your business, particularly finances. What would be your advice for someone who has this idea but doesn't have the money to get started?
I would say your plan is your strength. You need to think about it very clearly, because even with finances, initially most people get started by getting money from friends, family, and fools, as they say, somebody who's crazy enough to invest in an idea that is not yet there. So I would say focus on your plan, because finances are not everything, to be honest. Finances are not everything. I think the best thing to do is have a plan, because you will never know. Someone might come across your particular idea. For me, I was lucky enough to partner with Prospero to launch one of the mobile campsites that we're running, and I believe that was because I had a plan that I could show. So instead of sitting there and thinking, I do not have the money to do this, work on your plan. And there are different ways of seeking those the finances, but if you don't have a plan, no one is going to invest in your business. And the second thing I'd also say is start small. A lot of the times when we want to start a business, whether it's rearing chickens or selling drinks, we want to start as big as we can. Like I said, I'd be going 10 years, and that's 10 years of no revenue. When I did start, I started with friends. In the earlier days, I used to do things pro bono, so I used to do trips for free. So start small with whatever you have. Start very, very small, and if you can keep that momentum going, and you have a plan, then it's easier to make way for that financing to finance your project. But I wish you all the best in your endeavors and as you launch your business.
Okay, so always have a plan, start small, and shout out to Prospero for helping Mwaba on his journey. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of our session. If you have questions for Mwaba, you can ask them in the chat, and I'm sure he'll get back to you later. You can also go to his pages on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and you can visit the Mwaba Mwila Adventures website as well to learn more about his work, or even better, join him in person for one of his trips. Before we close off for the afternoon, do you have anything else you want to add, Mwaba?
No, I'll just like to say thank you for having me. It's been great. I've been following all the different sessions. If you haven't watched any of the sessions, please go to the page and watch those sessions. Very impactful. Continue the work that you're doing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.